1. This happened not long ago at all. I was working for the corporate offices of a company that owned many men's fine clothing brands. My little team was over-the-phone customer services. We dealt primarily with online orders, store support, and other such matters. One day I get a call from a lady who was very nice at first, and I go through the regular call routine, starting with a branded greeting of whatever brand I'm representing for the call. That becomes important later. Of gathering a bit of info to see if we have her already on file. Nothing came up under what she gives me, which is fine. That sort of thing happens all the time. I mentioned something about not being able to pull up further information, and she makes a comment about how weird that is because she shops with us all the time. Which again doesn't raise me any red flags because many of our systems are not interlinked. I gather the basics: first name, last name, initial, basic contact info, and I start making a case for the call. She says something about wanting more product info because she may want to do a return of the item, or something like that. I ask her to give me the SKU number so I can pull up that particular item. She gives me a number that's a completely different format than I became accustomed. This was the first red flag. I tell her that doesn't look like one of ours, and if there is any other number she can give me, I'd be happy to help. She grumbles something about no other numbers while I try to run this through all 4 of the inventory systems we had. It turned up nothing, which surprised no one. At this point she became a little frustrated. Not full on fix my problem you little shit rage, but it was obvious she felt I didn't know what I was doing. I put her on hold and called over a floor manager. They took one look at the number and told me to pull it up in yet another inventory system. This one takes a while just to boot up, so after that's said and done, the manager's halfway across the floor, and I've put this customer on like a 3-minute hold, which was long for this particular company. I get back to the customer, who has gone from mildly frustrated to quite obviously upset in the amount of time she was waiting. She begins to spew a whole number of things about being bounced around different call channels, and all she wanted was some basic information about her cookware set. We don't sell no fucking cookware. At this point I mute the phone and try my best not to fucking lose it out loud on the call floor because cookware set was the last thing I was expecting to hear. Another manager who just happened to be listening in on the call came over, and thankfully didn't see me silently crying in laughter, and told me to ask them who they thought they were talking to. I unmute the phone and ask, "You are aware this is a clothing company, right ma'am?" "No sir, this is Sam's Club." I can guarantee this is not Sam's Club. I was unable to convince her that she had been transferred to someone that had absolutely no affiliation with whomever she was on the phone with before me, and I had to put her on the phone with one of my managers just to prove it to her. My manager got her convinced with some ridiculous amount of effort, I might add, and wrapped up the call. Once the phone was off the hook, we laughed for a few seconds. That was probably the best part of that day. 2. I work as the assistant manager of my store. We sell all sorts of gadgets, but mainly deal in kitchenware. I generally love my job, but I'm not overly fond of a certain co-worker. This story happened earlier today when I was trying to finish all my tasks for the week, as well as keep the co-worker off my back. They like to hover and criticize despite the fact that I can, will, and have written them up for it. So while trying to finish a task, I had an elderly woman walk up to the counter. First words out of her mouth are, "I lost my receipt, but I bought this here last week for my daughter, and she's worried it'll give her a rash." I'm walking over with a smile and watch her pull this item from her purse. It's a grooming item by a company we don't carry. I feel the edges of my smile dip, because this is either going to be one of 2 scenarios. Either she's confused and I'll feel bad for Granny, or she thinks I'm stupid. "Ma'am, we don't sell that here." I reply and watch as this other woman comes in behind Granny and is standing off to the side. The woman looks up at me and says, "Yes you do, I bought it here last week." I've had this happen before where someone tried to say they bought something from us. It tends to piss me off, and is a test to my patience and retail mask. "Ma'am, we don't sell this item. Here, let me show you." I take the item and pick up the scan gun, entering into our inventory. I scan it, and it says no match. This shows it's not from us. It doesn't even have our sticker or company name on it. The woman continues to stare at me. I bought it here last week. It was in your clearance table for $9.99. I don't know how I managed to keep myself from rolling my eyes. First off, our clearance items are handled in a very particular manner, and the price never ends in a 9. Secondly, if we sold it, it'd still be in our system until the day the machines rise up to overtake their lazy masters. No matter how old, or if it's been discontinued. Ma'am, I'm not trying to be nasty, but we do not sell that item. Maybe you bought it from another store. No, I bought it here. It must have been taken out of your system. No, it wouldn't have been here. Let me show you. I take an item on the register and scan it in the same way I did hers. This shows it's our product. I then take her item and scan it again to receive another no-match image. This shows me we do not sell this item and it's not one of ours. It is! I got it in the clearance bin. I've lost my patience, but managed to remain semi-decent to her. I haven't called her a southern insult yet. No, it didn't. We do not sell it. I then watch her huff and puff and put it in her purse, before she and her friend march over to our clearance table and start rummaging. She gives up after 5 minutes when she sees I'm not budging or taking my eyes off her. She leaves, and her friend starts to follow her. The co-worker I'm on with comes back and I start doing my other tasks. The woman's friend comes back to ask if we sold Asian spoons. The co-worker wasn't sure what she meant and I stepped up. The ceramic ones for miso? No ma'am, we don't carry those. Maybe try another store. You really are pissing me off now. You don't have nothing I need in here and try to lie to a little old lady. I smile at her and reply, I'm sorry, we don't carry those items. Have a good day, ma'am. And walked away. 3. I'm a cashier at a home improvement store. This story takes place a couple of months ago on a busy Saturday when our computer system was down. Obviously, this was a major inconvenience for everyone. We couldn't accept gift cards or in-store credit. We also couldn't accept debit cards, since our system couldn't connect to the banks. At least I think that's why. Please correct me if I'm wrong. My store was one of the lucky ones. We had a backup system for the pin pads. It was just really slow. Each payment, except for cash, took about 5 minutes to process. Most people were pretty understanding about this. However, we had the usual people who made it clear that even though this wasn't our fault, it was still our fault. From the group of ladies who wanted to use their in-store credit now to the guy this story is about. FYI, if I remember correctly, this guy is a semi-regular who, a couple months before this incident, came through my line down at the pro register, and was super condescending and made it very clear that I, a cashier, had no clue how to properly ring him up. But that's not really the point. It's also worth noting that we were doing everything we could to keep people happy. My co-worker was actually on 2 registers, jumping back and forth between them as she rang people up and waited for payments to process. We'd both already been yelled at a couple of times by impatient and irritated people, and we'd had non-stop lines. So this guy came stomping up to my register and started complaining about how he couldn't rent the tool he needed down at Tool Rental, because their entire system was totally down. He made sure to let me know what a huge inconvenience this was for him, because he had friends coming over in an hour to help him with whatever project he was working on. And now what was he supposed to do? And he basically made it clear that yes, this wasn't our fault, but this was still our fault for not knowing how to get our system back up. I know it's a huge inconvenience, but it's technology, and at the store level, there's unfortunately nothing we can do to control it. See, well, you guys should be better prepared, and should be more interested in helping the customer. Or something like that. It's been a few months, and there was so much going on that I barely remember it. Well, you know, it's technology, and technology isn't perfect. It does happen. See, well, I'll have you know that I work with technology, so I know that this never happens. He snatched the receipt from my hand and stormed off. Newsflash, dude, I work with technology too, and this happens all the time. Anyway, for the record, this was a national store-wide problem. And not too long after this guy stormed out, our system came back up. 4. This is one of those tales which on some subreddits would end with, and everyone clapped. We were close, and I wish I could honestly say that happened. To give a little background, for many years I've been helping out a farmer friend at a couple of farmers markets. He grows and sells a wide range of organic vegetables, which are freshly picked and beautifully presented at the stall. At the forefront of the display is one of the items he's best known for, a huge basket full of a wonderful mix of lettuces, anything from 12 to 15 varieties. It's very popular among the customers at the market, and they are willing to come early to guarantee the supply, or wait patiently for others to finish taking what they need. One of the varieties is known as a Schluss, and is a gorgeous green with crimson spectacles, and on the morning that this happened, was looking especially luscious. The story begins several years ago, on a day when I was working with the farmer himself. The man is one of my closest friends, the third person I met when I came to the US, and the best man at my wedding. Cue the woman I'll call the picker. She stood in the queue along with everyone else, and finally came to take her turn. I was serving customers with their purchases, but slowly became aware of a disturbance in the force. It wasn't of biblical proportions, just a little ripple, but it was enough to attract my attention to the picker. I looked over to watch what she was doing, and saw that she was going through the whole basket to pick out just one variety. Of course, it was the wonderful Schluss she was after. Behind her, shuffling their feet, were perhaps 4 or 5 people, craning their necks to see what was causing the holdup. Me, can I help you? The picker. Oh, I'm after this lettuce. She shows me a leaf. Me, the trout belly lettuce. It is rather beautiful, yes? The picker. I had some of the mix last week, and everyone said how wonderful this one was, so I thought I'd come back and get some more today. Me, sadly, it's part of the salad mix. I'd rather you didn't go through the whole basket for it. The picker. But it's the only one I want. Me, ma'am, not only are you holding up other customers who want the mix, but you're bruising the other leaves digging through the basket. The picker. But this is the one I want. Me, well, I suggest you find a source for just that variety. The picker. I went to all the local stores to try and find it. No one has it. She proceeds to continue her digging through the display to find more leaves to add to the couple of ounces she currently has in her bag. Me, ma'am, please don't do that anymore. The picker just glares and carries on. Me, okay, would you allow me? I hold out my hand for the bag, which she dutifully hands over. I take the bag, hold it by one lower corner, and tip the contents back into the basket. Watching her shocked face, I gently stir the leaves over the surface, and pass the now empty bag back to her. Me, it's a salad mix. You either take the mix or grow your own of that variety. I will even find a source for the seed for you. At this point, she devolved into that customer who announces that she will never come to us again. This makes me happy, as well as the half-dozen customers she's been holding up. I sense that applause is in the offing, but I'm still slightly disappointed that her departure was not accompanied by clapping. She never returned. Epilogue. I'm fortunate enough to work with a man who has as little patience for fools as I, and who is happy that we both have the capability to fire customers who cross boundaries of common human decency. This was only the first of about 4 or 5 customer firings over a period of about 14 years. I'm not an unreasonable man, but I do have my limits. I feel a strong sense of sorrow for anyone who lacks the ability to talk straight to customers who are nitwits. And having read many tales both here and at Tales from Tech Support, I light a candle for you all and pray for your deliverance. 5. About a week ago, 2 middle-aged Mexican women came to my co-worker to have a quinceañera invitation drafted up. They found an invitation paper on the shelves on clearance for half off, and there were 4 boxes of 50 invites left. They only needed 100 invites, but wanted us to set aside the other half of the boxes for them to purchase to use later, for other occasions. It was a great price, after all, no big deal. All of the information for the cards, however, was chicken-scratched on the back of a form in barely legible red pen. My co-worker, who's fluent in Spanish and a pretty good designer, read the chicken-scratch as best she could and drafted up these cards beautifully, and called the ladies back to have them come in to look at the proof. I was working when they came in, but I had seen the cards already and I knew where they were in our files. I whipped them out for the ladies to see. One of them, the only one of the 2 who spoke English, asked for a pen and began to mark the spelling errors and edits, asking for the other woman's help occasionally. We changed spelling, order of words, and size of fonts. I worked hard to make them happy, spending about 45 minutes of my time in a busy day to help them out. Finally satisfied, they left with a copy to show the birthday girl, and promised to call back with the thumbs up. They did so a couple hours later and expressed their complete satisfaction with the cards. So I went ahead and printed the 100 invites. End of order, right? Total satisfaction. I came back to work yesterday after a day off, to all my pretty invites stuffed in a paper bag on the back counter, with a post-it note on them from my co-worker. Note said roughly, they wanted more edits, I already finished them and saved it in file. Just print them for me on the other 100 cards. Didn't have the heart to toss these. Frowny face. Next to the post-it was one of the old invites, with scribbles and edits all over it. I was immediately furious, as we'd wasted about $30 of beautiful paper, even though I'd worked for almost an hour on the proof with them. I swallowed my pride and printed the other 100 though. Very quickly after I finished, as if she knew somehow, the woman who spoke English came in without the other to pick up her cards. At first I thought she was alone, but then I saw a 4-year-old boy who was surely her son trailing way too far behind her and messing with stuff on the shelves. She was completely ignoring him and every attempt to get her attention. I'll save you from the long of it, but the short of it was that she found 2 more errors, a name spelling, and one word that was supposed to be deleted but was still there. She asked me what I wanted to do about it. I offered her a coupon for her next visit, since she'd already paid for the order and were now out of the special clearance paper. If I gave her a full refund, I'd have to take the cards, and she wouldn't have invites at all. She said she'd have to call her daughter, the birthday girl, and see what she wanted to do. I felt this was fair enough and waited around while she made the call. This woman spent, without exaggeration, an hour leaning on my counter talking loud in Spanish, starting several different phone calls and trying to get my attention several times to remind me that she was still there when I tried to help other customers. She did not look over at her son once. He ran behind my counter, picked through the trash, picked up several toys and screamed and cried that he wanted them, and left them on the ground when his mom eventually screamed, "No, calate!" This woman was clearly oblivious to how much space she was taking up. She decided to camp out right next to my register and the pin pad. So every time I had a customer, I'd have to interrupt her phone call and ask that she move to let the customer use the pin pad. She would move but hover uncomfortably close by, enough that a customer even told her to back off. He was afraid she'd see his pin. Immediately after the other customers would leave, she would move right back to her spot and lean back on the counter. Finally, she hung up and asked me if I could make birthday invitations for her little monster son's birthday party as well, and just give her 10% off those. Glad to just finish with her, I told her of course I would do that. I asked her if she wanted to do it today, and she said yes. We settled at my workstation, a different counter, thank God, and I gave her a sheet of paper to write down the info for his party. She got about as far as her son's name and the contact phone number before she realized she didn't know the name of the party hall, or the time, or really anything at all. She asked if she could call somebody to figure out the rest of it. Spoiler alert, she spent another half hour at the counter on the phone, and never found the rest of the information. Her son continued screaming, she continued ignoring him. Finally, she admitted defeat and told me she'd just email the info. She dragged her demon child out. Later I found a bunch of half-eaten candy from our impulse buys that he'd gotten into when she wasn't looking, and then stuffed behind a display. That will not be included in the 10% off when I ring her up. Rest assured she'll be paying full price for every single candy he got into. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Adventures in Fast Food and Retail number 27. I will apologize if you can hear any noise out back. Usually people would quiet down after 9 at night, but it looks like they're just getting started outside, so if you can hear people having fun celebrating, that's why. But it's the outro, so what the hell, let them go for it. Now, you might be wondering, before I go further, I'd just like to thank everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video, because they are your stories and you have the right to do that. And that brings me to why we don't have embarrassing stories today. I went last night, leaving it a bit late occasionally, as occasionally I do. I went to start sourcing stories for the embarrassing stories video. I went to Reddit, I saw a message. I was like, message. So I clicked on it. It was a message telling me I'd been banned from the TIFU subreddit, which was very confusing for me because I don't post there, like ever. So I contacted them asking, could you explain to me why I've been banned from a subreddit I don't post on? Then I explained that I do use stories from that subreddit, but everyone is very respectfully, everyone's contacted privately. They give me permission to use their stories, and I don't ever promote my channel on your subreddit, or quite frankly, I don't promote it on any subreddit. And this is the part that irked me. They're claiming, and you should be aware of this if you're going to be posting there, they're claiming when you post a story on their subreddit, you forfeit your rights to that story as the author. They're claiming you no longer have the right to do anything with it. For example, you can't say to me, according to them, you're not allowed to say to me, yes, you may do a narration of my story for your YouTube channel. This actually contradicts Reddit's own rules on the matter, because I double-checked, because I was quite sure anyway, but I double-checked and I pointed that out to them. Well, I'm going to point you towards this rule on Reddit, which actually says that's not the case. While when you post something on Reddit, you grant Reddit certain permissions to do things with it, you still retain the rights. I knew this because when you do what I do, you've got to be very careful of the rules. You've got to be very respectful of people's copyright. That's how I knew this. And so, when I pointed that out to them, they changed tactic by saying, well, they pointed to this other rule, it was a moderator rule, and they claimed that I was using my position as a moderator to make money. Which there is I looked at the rule they were talking about. What that rule says, and again, they've either misunderstood or they're hoping I wasn't intelligent enough to understand. I'm not sure what the issue was here. This rule says that you cannot be paid to perform your moderator actions by a third party, right? I am not a moderator on any of the subreddits I use for stories. Not one of them. Wouldn't want the responsibility. It would also be a conflict of interests. So what it seems to me is one of the new mods they've hired on the TIFU subreddit hasn't really fully understood the rules that goes into it, because quite frankly, they're pointing towards rules and things here and there, and it sounds like they're making stuff up is what it sounds like. So they either don't fully understand the rules, so they need to be properly trained before they're allowed to perform moderator duties, or they're just trying it on. Maybe they don't like the fact that somebody does narrations. But that's not up to them. As I say, that is up to the individual. Everyone is contacted privately, and they can either say yes or no, or if they don't respond, I take that as a no. Although, according to this person, I've now been reported to the Reddit admins, and they then said, good luck with the admins. I know I haven't done anything wrong. I have checked and double-checked the rules. But there is always the possibility of getting an overworked admin, because these people are very busy. They really don't have time to be dealing with this shit. Of getting an overworked admin who just glances at something and takes action without properly looking at it. So that is a concern, and I hope that doesn't happen. But we'll have to see, I suppose. But for now, I'm just so disgusted, I'm not even interested in doing embarrassing stories at the moment. Oh, and also, I was told I had to remove all of the embarrassing stories from my channel. But why would I do that? They don't own the rights to them. And they really don't own the rights to them. Not only is there actually nothing on their subreddit which states that, if there was, I don't think they'd get anywhere near the activity that they do. Okay, and with that I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.